Good morning, friends. Taking forward our previous topic, insight and applicability of GST on running of educational institutions by NGOs, and as was mentioned, today in this video I shall be discussing about taxability or exemption of certain services provided to and by the educational institutions under the GST Act. As I discussed in my previous video, the educational institutions, even though being a charitable organizations, are exempt under the Income Tax Act, it's not necessary that they might be exempt under GST too and might have to comply with the GST norms unless the conditions laid down in the relevant act is fulfilled, or certain services might be specifically exempted under the act. So let's begin our discussion and check out which of the services provided by the NGOs running as educational institutions is taxable and which are exempt under the GST Act. First and foremost is the boarding and lodging services. We usually see that the schools also have boarding facilities for their students. The services of boarding or lodging provided by the institutions covered by the definition of educational institutions shall be fully exempt, as any services given by such institutions to its students have been granted exemption as per the entry number 66 of the notification number 12. Therefore, annual subscription or fees charged towards the boarding or accommodation by such educational institutions from its students shall not attract GST. However, boarding schools providing educational services coupled with other services, I repeat, boarding schools providing educational services coupled with other services such as providing accommodation, food, etc., falls under the concept of composite supply in GST regime, and their taxability is determined in terms of the principles laid down under section 2 subsection 30 read with section 8 of the CGST Act 2017. Now let's check out certain key relatable definitions on this topic. Composite supply. Now what is composite supply? It is a supply made by a taxable person to a recipient consisting of two or more taxable supplies of goods and services, or both or any combination thereof, which are naturally blended and supplied in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, on which is a principal supply. Now what is principal supply? A principal supply is the supply of goods and services which constitutes the predominant element of a composite supply, and to which any other supply forming part of that composite supply is ancillary. From the discussion done till now, it can be interpreted that since services of boarding or lodging and fooding etc. are naturally bundled in case of boarding schools and is supplied in the ordinary course of its activities, it will be considered as composite supply. As education is the predominant element of such supply, the other services will not be considered for the purpose of determining the tax liability, and accordingly the entire consideration, I repeat, entire consideration including boarding charges shall be exempt. Next comes the courses offered by the Indian Institute of Management, that is IIMs. The education services are classified under the heading 992, where the services provided by IIMs to the students are also covered specifically. However, only the certain specific educational programs offered by such institutes, except Executive Development Program, have been exempt from GST as per serial number 67 of the notification number 12. Now what is the specific services? 2-year full-time post-graduation programs in management for the postgraduate diploma in management, to which the admissions are made on the basis of Common Admission Test, that is CAT, Fellow Program in Management, and 5-year integrated program in management. In our view, Only those courses offered by the IIMs as specified in the discussion have been kept outside the purview of GST, since executive development program run by the IIMs have been specifically excluded. Such courses along with the others which are not covered shall be liable to GST. Next comes the other courses offered along with the exempted ones. If an artificial bundle of services is created by clubbing two courses together, I repeat, if an artificial bundle of services is created by clubbing two courses together, only one of which leads to qualification recognized by law, then it will be considered as mixed supply, and the taxability is determined in terms of the principles laid down under section 2 subsection 74 read with section 8 of the GST Act 2017, thereby attracting the highest rate of GST. Next comes renting of premises. If the property owned by such educational institutions is given out on rent to others, no exemption, I repeat, no exemption will be available for such services, and the rental income shall be liable to GST at the rates specified, which is 18%. This implies if the receipts from rent exceeds the prescribed threshold limit under GST, the organization need to apply for the registration and meet all the necessary compliances as may be prescribed under the Act, such as issuing tax invoices with requisite details, payment of taxes within the due date, timely filing of returns as may be applicable, and many more of such compliances. Then comes incidental auxiliary education services. Sometimes such educational institutions provide certain incidental auxiliary courses by way of hobby classes or extracurricular activities for the furtherance of overall well-being will be considered as naturally bundled courses and therefore be treated as the composite supply as explained before. Accordingly, the predominant element, that is the main course, shall be considered for the purpose of taxability and shall be exempt if they meet the criteria specified in the definition of educational institution. However, one relevant consideration in such cases will be the amount of extra billing done for the unrecognized component vis-a-vis the recognized course. If extra billing is being done, it might be considered to be the case of artificial bundling of two different services. I repeat, if extra billing is done, it might be considered as the artificial bundling of the two courses which are not supplied together in the ordinary course of its activities, and in that case it will be treated as mixed supply, thereby attracting the highest rate of GST for the entire consideration. Till now we were discussing the services provided by the educational institutions. Now let's see which services have been exempted when it is provided to the educational institutions. Entry number 66 of the notification number 12 specifically exempts certain services which are provided to educational institutions by other service providers, which are transportation of students, faculty and staff, catering including any midday meal scheme sponsored by the central government, state government or union territory, security or cleaning or housekeeping services performed in such educational institutions, services relating to admission to or conduct of examination by such educational institution up to higher secondary. However, all these exemptions come with a rider that such services are exempt only for those educational institutions which provide services by way of education up to higher secondary or equivalent. Now, what is our view on the exemption of these services which are provided to educational institutions? It can be interpreted that auxiliary education services which are not specified would not be eligible for exemption and shall be liable to GST. Even if these services are provided to educational institutions offering courses providing a qualification recognized by law which very well falls within the definition of educational institutions, exemption shall not be granted, as educational institutions up to higher secondary or equivalent has been specifically mentioned for such services provided to educational institutions. So friends, I hope you might have got a fair idea now about the impact of GST on running of educational institutions being a charitable organization and whether your organization falls under the purview of GST or not. For more such updates and tutorials, keep tuned to our channel. Don't forget to subscribe it and put your notifications on. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. Thank you.